Hello, hello, it is me, KO, and it's been forever since I posted anything, probably because I, going through a little bit of COVID crud, not wanting to really do much because I don't feel like there's much to do, but wanted to do this video because I've been wanting to do this video for a while, and it's about this gun. You may have seen it in some of my previous videos, but it is the Ruger Mark II Target. It says it right along there. I'm not sure if I can get enough light on it. There we go. Mark II Target. And it's 22 caliber long rifle, which, for reference, if you don't know what 22 round looks like, that is what it is. And a lot of 22 rounds are already hollow point because, I mean, they're dirt cheap anyways, so why not make them hollow point? Make them all hollow point. So, this video, I'm going to disassemble this, not like a full disassembly, take every single screw out, because I'm not completely confident in my ability to do that yet. But this was a gun that was around throughout my childhood. I always remember seeing this gun and thinking 007 James Bond, mostly because of this long part here, the suppressor, the hand, which, if you've ever shot a 22 anyways, they're not very loud, you know, in comparison to some. And if you're wearing ear protection, it doesn't barely sound like you're shooting anything anyways, but they're not silent by any means. A lot of people use suppressors and things on them. So, gonna take this apart, kind of show you how it's done. And the reason I choose to do this one is because it's really interesting. It's an old style weapon. If you want to look up the Mark II Ruger online, find it made a while back, and then there was a Mark I before that. It was made even before then. But go ahead and go about normal gun safety. This one is weird because in order to release the mag, you have to roll that part back, then you pull the mag out. Let's see if I can get a better look at that. And these come built in with these little handles that you can pull down on. Makes loading the rounds in a little bit easier. Okay, so have the mag out, and then nothing inside, nothing in the chamber. So we'll go ahead and clean. But in order to disassemble this, you have to do one thing that you're not supposed to do with rimfire weapons, and that is drop the trigger. Unfortunately, yeah. If you don't know, you're not supposed to dry fire rimfire weapons because it's not the best for them. So this next part, handy dandy, super specific tool. Not really. This next part I've done even with a paper clip before. And what it is this little spot right here. That little lever down the center is tucked in there pretty tight, but this part right here is what gives you the tension you need for the trigger, pull, and reset. So what you have to do is pull this part up, which I will do. Oops. Probably using metal on metal is not the best because it will damage it and mar it a little bit. But this one already has a lot of marring, I think, from where my father might have done it. I think I do better with a paper clip. I don't know if I have one around here though. Okay, that wasn't a paper clip. That was just a staple off of a roll of staples, or I don't know what it is. So this has to be pulled back, up, and try to get this back on the screen. Wiggle it a little bit and pull down. This, try to give it a little bit better view. That's what I like to call the devil's thingamajig, because this is crazy to me. But you take that part of the gun out, then you see that won't come out immediately, but turn it over, depress the trigger, comes out. That is the slide. You may not can hear it. I don't know how much background noise this is picking up. There's a little sound in there, and that's a pin attached to the trigger. And that pin is very important when taking this gun apart. Now, from here, taking those two pieces out, you can theoretically clean the gun. If you look down through there, there's no bullet in the chamber, but you can't see. You got a clear shot all the way down there. And you've got pretty good look inside. Got a flashlight over here. I put the flashlight down there. You can kind of see. But you can clean it from this point. But I will admit, from I can't figure out how to turn off a flashlight. There we go. I will admit, cleaning it from this point in disassembly, it's a lot more difficult, in my opinion, just because where usually I can take a single rod and go down the barrel, which the barrel actually extends from right there down to here. It's a lot easier to clean the barrel and then the chamber inside when it's disassembled the next step. However, this next step is another part that kind of makes me laugh about this gun, because it's hammer. Now, this is not a normal hammer. That plastic looking end, and then you got a copper. But this is not normal hammer. Now, if you were to have a gun like this and you don't have a hammer like this, you could very easily take a wooden dowel or synthetic and put it on this rim part right here and hit it. You just kind of have to be a little bit more precise with it, because that would require you have one hand on a dowel, then another hand on a hammer, and if you miss, you're gonna bang up the gun. The point of having this hammer is that I'm not gonna mar, I'm not gonna flatten the end of the gun. I'm gonna kind of do this a little bit differently than what I usually would do, just because I don't want this falling. Okay, I did it a little bit of the way, so you may be able to tell a slight difference. You may not. I guess with this, it's either I do it or I don't. So I can't kind of show you the halfway point. That part still always gets me, because like, why am I hitting a gun with a hammer? This is the trigger and all the other really important parts for loading around and subsequently shooting around. Well, technically, that's what ultimately shoots the round, but, you know. Handle, typically when I clean this, I clean down around the block there, a little bit over here, and some down in there, but truth be known that a lot of the dirt and grime that I get in this gun isn't in here. I have even, every so once in a while, I take these screws out on either side and take the guards off, because if you noticed before with the mag, they are hollow. They have a slit down the side, so some dirt from inside the gun see, it comes up to there. Some dirt, which is all gun residue, can get down, and when you actually take the handles off, you can find a little bit inside of there, and not bad to take them off every so once in a while, clean them out, just so you don't end up with a lot of it in there and it gets where it's hard to push your mag back into it, but not something you have to do every time. So, as I said before, it's possible to clean it without taking this off, which this is the barrel and the chamber pretty much all put together into one. But the convenient part about taking it off is you have these two huge spaces that you can get brushes into, fingers, anything you need to clean the inside of a gun. And you can even go down with much longer tools and clean out the chamber a lot easier. And I keep saying clean out, clean out, clean out, because that is a major part of a 22. Some do better than others, but ultimately the 22 round is pretty dirty, especially because most times when people are shooting 22, they're shooting bulk, really can be dirty stuff, because you can get the stuff for pennies. when we look over here, which this part has already kind of fell off a little bit, it's a slide, and the firing pin is also part of this. I don't know if it's going to focus in too well on that. It might, if I could hold my hand still. Focus. You can kind of get an idea of what it looks like even if I can't hold my hand steady enough to make it see it. But this part I usually will take, well yeah, now you don't want to come off. Take the spring off of it. I say you take the spring off of it. Just wiggled it out a little bit. If you have one of these guns or one similar to it, don't take the spring and try to yank and pull at it, because if you bend it, it ain't gonna work. And if you've ever tried with any machine to find parts, once they stop making it, it gets a lot harder. So if you've got really nice old guns, be careful, don't bust them. And usually get a fair amount of dirt here, because this is the part that will go down smack into the round and fire it. But usually this is about as far as I go taking this part and cleaning it. You can, if you see, once again, if I can get it to focus in on a pin, you can take that part out and disassemble it further. I have not done that yet, but I have not, in my opinion, fired enough rounds through it to warrant that kind of cleaning. And also, once again, I'm not 100% sure I can get it back together yet. Like I said before, this is a journey. And this is one of my more favorite guns to fire anytime I'm practicing, so I don't want to bust my favorite gun and not know how to put it back together. That would be sad. So, the disassembly, ta-da. Like with that, there's also pins on the handle that you can take apart and remove pieces and get really down to the nitty-gritty of it all, but not doing that right now. I have before taken out this part that you pull back to release the mag, because it had a really gritty feel to it, like there's dirt or sand in there, and it was where some residue had built up over time. I cleaned that up. It took me a while to put that part back together because I had to figure out how it was done, and some YouTube videos on things, they're just like, yeah, just put it in like this. Like, I see. But anyways, going through reassembly, take the spring, slide it back together like a good friend. Make sure as best as you can to have a circle, because that circle is important, because that's where this thingamajig ultimately slides through. And show you on this one, there's a hole there, there's a hole there. all of those line up together, then you put that in. So I'll show you that as I go through it. As barbaric as smacking a gun with a hammer is, this is about equally as barbaric. Maybe not, but you can hammer it, but you also have to make sure that you don't put it on crooked, or like I said, these circles will not line up. But you can't see it through there. So they're not very lined up right now because it's not completely on. Because typically I have to stand up. Whoop. Having a cloth on the desk is actually a bad thing. Who knew? Ting. It slid into place. Now it protrudes a little bit. And you can see it's kind of hard to do too much because technically you're seeing through that part down there, but I do a little, go straight through. And this part slides right back in. Now when you look at it this way, and line that back up, you still see my finger moving, but you can tell it's a little bit off. And that's because this part has to be pushed and held into that position. If you let go, it will slide away from it ever so slightly, because that's part of the firing mechanism of it all. So from here, reinserting this part that I call the devil's thingamajig is why I call it that. Because it took so long to understand this one piece. And I'm going to show you why. In there, where's my flashlight? In there's a little pin. And that's the pin that was making the little clacking noise earlier. That pin is very important in this process because it has to be in a certain location at a certain point, or it doesn't work. So, I'm actually going to try to mess this up. I know that sounds crazy. Flashlight keeps rolling around. But when you put this in, you have to hold that in place and push it down until it goes through all of it. And then you see the pin up there. Then, as you do that, you see it starts popping back out. And that's because I should have left the flashlight out. That's because the little pin, you can still see it, it's right there. So when you push down, pin's still there, or spring, lever, whatnot. You can't get it back in there, no matter how hard you try, because there is a little bit of area you're not covering. So how do you fix that? Well, this is where I've made my mistake before. You have to drop the pin and then it goes back in. Which unfortunately I did it right, so I have to redo it. That's what I wanted to happen. Okay, this is the part again where I'm playing with a flashlight off camera. There we go. What I did was I kind of tilted the gun so that pin that I keep showing you falls out of place, and it does this. Now, if you do this and it gets like this, you think, okay, cool, it's ready. And you pop that down. You think you're ready to go. Gun looks good. Is it the trigger? It doesn't work. And that's because of that itty bitty pin that you can barely see. Now, used to, wait, this, get the tool I actually did it right with. Used to, I thought you had to completely disassemble everything in order to fix that. Not so. So, pulling this part back out. That pin has to go in a very certain location. Some people have the benefit on their gun that there is a line or a groove that goes all the way down. Let's see if this makes any difference. Now that kind of makes it worse. But some of them down this little center part have a line that you can follow. But that pin right there, that's ever so slightly there, has to go into this spot. If it doesn't, you get the problem where you put it in there and the slide won't pull back. So, what basically cemented knowing how to put this together was having that mistake where I put the devil's thingamajig back in, and I put it in there, and it went straight in. I'm like, hey, I'm getting pretty good at this. I got to the range that day and tried to load around. It didn't work. Which, you know, if I was a little bit smarter, I would have checked it before I went out to the range. But that bit of pressure right there that you can tell as I squeeze, it depresses and it comes back out, is what you want. Because that means it is in place, and that means you can actually use the gun. So, kind of keeping the pressure on it so it stays in there. You turn the lever down. Make sure to move your finger, because pieces like that are the kind of give you marks on your hand that you really don't like. from there, you're back to normal. I would fire a round out of it if I could, but I'm in my house and I don't have anywhere right now that I'm going to shoot because world pandemic, you know about that. So that is Ruger Mark II. The magazine. It's an old gun, not really too old, but it's one of my favorites, especially because ammo for it is so cheap. Hopefully that was interesting. God bless. Thanks for watching.